Imagine a planet where you eat worm poop to get high and open your mind to gigabrain mode while also tripling your life expectancy and giving you badass glowing blue eyes. Does that sound like a good Tuesday night to you? Listen, Dune is a very complex series to explain to most people,
especially when all they care about is that Dune ussy.
But I'm here to give you the Spark Notes version so that you aren't completely illiterate to the Dune universe when I start talking about Dune Awakening. So here's the basic idea in about 120 seconds. First off, the story takes place thousands of years in the future, and you'll notice that there are no computers in this universe. That's because the whole man versus machine Terminator-style apocalypse happened in this timeline already. It was called the Butlerian Jihad. Now computers are forbidden, as the commandment "thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind" is stated in the Orange Catholic Bible. Think about all the things that we use computers for: calculations, simulations, data storage. All these things are now done by people, and these people are called mentats. Mentats run computer-like calculations in their head, and they are often a valuable asset to great houses. And so if the mentats are doing calculations, then what about navigation and spaceships? How do people get from one planet to another? Well, there is a space travel monopoly called the Space Guild. And the Space Guild uses guild navigators who hotbox with the spice gas in their ships to turn their gigabrains online 24/7. They have so much prolonged exposure to spice that their bodies have mutated and their heads have elongated themselves to make room for their massive wrinkly noodle ball. Their massive brains allow them to navigate through space at faster-than-light speeds across great distances using prescience, which is the ability to see the past, present, and future. The Space Guild is how people and goods are transported through space. And since importing and exporting goods is what drives economics, and the only way that the guild can do what they do is with spice, means if you're paying attention, spice is how the navigators navigate, and it also extends life by up to 300%, and it activates prescience powers. It is the single most valuable commodity in the universe. It is only found on one planet in the universe. That planet is called Arrakis, also known as Dune. And because Dune has giant sandworms, and spice comes from the poop of the sandworms that comes into contact with water, and then the heat brings it to the surface as spice. Okay? Okay. So, Dune is centered all around spice and the Bene Gesserit prophecy. What is the Bene Gesserit prophecy? Well, that essentially says that there will be a male born to a Bene Gesserit, which normally only bear females, and that male will grow up to be the Kwisatz Haderach, or Messiah. He would be able to see not only the past, but all possible futures. This prophecy was made up by the Bene Gesserit to gain control over primitive worlds that they have spent generations doing this religious engineering until one day Paul Atreides, son of Bene Gesserit Lady Jessica of House Atreides, was born, thus the start of the Dune books and movies. Okay, so maybe I went a little over 120 seconds. But back to the MMO set on the planet where you eat worm poop to get high. See, this is where the story between the books and the game change paths. You do not need to read the books or watch the movies to understand what is going on in the game, because in the game, Paul Atreides was never born. His mother bared a daughter, Ariste, as she was told. This diversion of the timeline allows us as a player to play the game being our own main character with agency instead of just being a pawn in one of Paul's plans. So this brings the questions: who are we, what do we do, and how do we do it?
Wait a minute! Who are you?
We can start getting this information from the character creation screen. As of the writing of this video, we know that we play as a prisoner, and we are sent to Arrakis to find the Fremen. Now this is a huge pain point in the Dune community, as a cinematic trailer revealed this summer said that the Fremen were exterminated. The Fremen are a key ingredient in the books, and that is the largest group of people on Arrakis. They are the main subjects that the Bene Gesserit have been engineering their religion around. If you can control the biggest obstacle where the spice is, it will make gaining power much easier. And as the Baron said in the movie,
"He who controls the spice controls the universe."
Now there's a little bit of contradictory going on, because the trailer said that they're exterminated, but our mission is to find the Fremen because they're missing. It's hard to say if we will find them for now, but I believe that people are panicking for no reason. In the books, the Fremen live in sieches, which are basically hidden caves under the surface of Arrakis, and they are good at hiding. They're so good at hiding that the Baron Harkonnen thought that there were thousands of them, but the Mentat Thufir Hawat claims that there are more than 10 million of them on the planet. So I believe something had happened that might have driven them to hide deep in the desert. Or maybe they went down to the southern desert where all the radically religious Fremen live. And nobody can find them because there's a huge sandstorm that blocks the southern region. So who knows? As we make our character, you can see some interesting details. We choose our homeworld that dictates our dialogue trait and a unique emote. Now, as of this time, we know that we can choose Chitin with the dialogue trait of political, Caladan with the dialogue trait of honorable, Chusuk with the dialogue trait of cultured, and Gady Prime with the dialogue trait of deceptive. Yeah, it's me from the future. What is this? I guess they had eeks here, but they didn't hover over it, so I have no idea what the special dialogue trait is. So there's that. What these unique dialogue traits offer is still yet to be seen. I think I'm going to choose Chusuk as it's the music planet, and maybe I just want to roleplay as a bard and play a balisette. And then we get to choose our economical class from Payan, which is a peasant servant, Na Familia, which is a member of a noble house, and Bondsman, which is just an educated citizen class. Now, these might all just be tied to the homeworld that you choose, as these were all the options for Caladan, but we do not know if they would be the same for Chitin or Gady Prime or Chusuk. And then we get to choose our mentor, where it looks like we basically get to decide our starting class and abilities. The options are Trooper with the focus of offense and demolition and the ability Sugarwire Cable, which is some sort of grappling hook ability. A Mentat with the focus in recon and strategy with the ability Battlefield Calculation, where you can scan nearby enemies and objects and gain info on them. The Bene Gesserit Acolyte has a focus in physical mastery and manipulation, and the ability is the Voice Compel, which is where you can use the voice to force someone towards you, and Swordsmaster, which is a focus in close quarters aggression, and the ability Deflection, where you enter a stance to deflect dart attacks. They make it a point that these are not classes you're locked into, and they will give you freedom to play however you want, and these just decide your starting gameplay abilities. Once you are done with the character creation, you get sent to Arrakis, where your ship crashes, and you get to start your journey. Now let's talk about the gameplay and mechanics versus the lore. Now, we don't have much gameplay or information on what we will and won't be able to do from the series, but what we do know so far is we know that your ship crashes in Haga Basin, which is where the main storyline takes place. They said that story is about 60 hours to get through, and that location is bigger than their entire previous game, Conan Exiles, which is somewhere around the mid-40s square kilometers, which puts it around the size of Skyrim, and that's just the beginning location. We know that there are wars between many factions, as well as House Atreides and House Harkonnen on Arrakis, and the Emperor has allowed these wars to happen as long as nobody touches the spice. The spice must flow freely, and it is policed by the Sardaukar army. So I'm guessing that we will find clues and remnants of the Fremen that lead us through the Haga Basin up until we get to the point to where we need to go to the deep desert to continue the search. Now, this is a survival MMO, and we'll need to worry about survival mechanics while traversing through the storyline. We'll need to stay in the shade as much as possible, and we'll need to stay hydrated. In the direct live stream, they confirmed that there will be still suits in the game. Still suits are a full body suit that collects your sweat and urine and converts it into clean drinking water.
What is this? What is this? Smells like this. Smells like ew.
A good fitted and well kept still suit can let you survive for weeks in the desert. Will we be able to craft our own still suits? Will we be able to produce better tiers of suits? Or will it just be a mechanic that we just kind of have and never really acknowledge it or enhance it? In the books, the Fremen make the best still suits, and it would be cool if there were better suits than we could find or craft in the world. They also talk about getting water from plants and most brutally from your enemies. The Fremen hold their bodies' water so precious that when one of their own die, they have no more use for their water, so they drain the liquid from their body and filter out the water to keep. They also do this to their enemies they defeat. After combat, they use a device called a death still to render water from their enemies and save it in canteens. Staying out of the sun is an obvious mechanic as well. Duh, it's the desert. But we will inevitably have to cross open sands at some point. And they confirmed that the famous sandworms will be present in this opening area, at least small ones. And for those who are unaware, consistent rhythmic patterns attract sandworms. So sprinting or walking across an open sand is pretty much a death sentence. So how are we going to get across? In the books and movies, the Fremen have a technique called a sand walk. It's basically like walking in the April Fool's Hungarian silly walk parade. But seriously, it's just walking in unusual patterns, and that way you don't attract the sandworms. Now, the devs have not confirmed or denied that we will be able to do anything like the sand walk, but they did say that we will be getting a sand bike, which aren't really in the books that I can tell, but I could be wrong. But anyways, along with the sand bike, you can see some larger trucks that are shown in the gameplay, and you'll need to time the use of these vehicles right to get you to the next safe spot before the sandworm can get you, because they too will attract sandworms. And last but not least, they have the mother truckin' ornithopters. These are those dragonfly-looking flying vehicles, and these things are freaking badass. Though they said this is one of the last things you do in the Haga Basin is fix up a thopter to leave to move on to the deep desert where the in-game content lies. But I am stoked to get to that point. And yes, they've confirmed base building, some of which looks really cool. They also said that your base is where you craft your weapons, clothes, and machines, and they have a co-op building system that will allow you to place holograms for your friends to add resources to fill in parts. And this next part is really interesting. You can save your base as a blueprint, and then you could sell that blueprint to other players on an exchange. So architecture and design gurus are going to be very well off, and the people who suck at building can buy the good bases. The combat has been described as a mix of melee, ranged attacks, abilities, and vehicles. They describe it as a sandbox combat system, and an example they give was using the voice to bring someone close to you so that you could stab them. It seems like they were offering a lot of freedom in how you engage in combat. I'm also assuming that this particular example was against an NPC and not a player, because, yeah, this game has PvP. Can you use the voice on other players? It would be cool, but how would that work? And in another trailer, we saw the use of a hunter-seeker drone, which is basically just a small, deadly, mosquito-looking drone that you control remotely. One mechanic that I did not see mentioned were shields. In the books, there are shields that block anything that moves above a certain speed, and the only way to penetrate the shield is with a slow blow. You can't just swing a sword and hit somebody, you'd have to get close enough to get the blade into the shield to cause damage. So it will be interesting to see if we get an update on the shield situation. They also said that during combat you can attract sandworms to your location. Now, you cannot kill the sandworms, you can only run from them or have one of your teammates distract them with the thumper. Now, for you Dune noobs, a thumper is a device that makes a rhythm on the surface of the sand and it attracts the worm to its location, which could also be used to pull pranks on your friends or to set up your enemies. And now down to the nerdy stuff. A very important part of this, to me, is authenticity. How accurate is this game going to be to the lore? Especially after seemingly removing the Fremen from the game, how well does it line up with the books and movies? Well, for one, you
cannot buy the sandworms. This game is fucking garbage.
Sorry, my YouTube comment troll is showing. But seriously, this game isn't about the events that take place in the books because this game follows a different path. Paul was never the Lizan al-Gaib, he was never the Messiah or the Kwisatz Haderach. He was forced into that position by a choice his mother made when she chose to bear a son instead of a daughter, throwing out a millennia of Bene Gesserit prophecy planting, making him a false prophet. This game does not follow that story. This game follows the path of a nobody prisoner on the planet Arrakis during a war of assassins between House Atreides and Harkonnen, where you have to survive the harsh planet. You can decide what house to stand with if you choose it all. You get to build a base, get an arsenal of weapons, and then go find the Fremen. And the end game was explained like going to the deep desert to harvest spice in a PvEVP area. Now, I'm sure that spice will serve a purpose to the player as well. There is still so much that we don't know, but I know that Funcom has been in contact with Legendary Pictures, as well as they sent a 10,000 or 100,000 word timeline document to the Herbert estate, who has given Funcom their blessing and approval. The only real concern that I have is the MMO aspect of the game. This means there's no single player, no private server, which means it's prone to cheaters and server issues and maintenance downtime, server wipes. I'm sure there will be microtransactions, and screw it, dude, who am I kidding? There's gonna be just plain old transactions. Microtransactions are no more. Now you pay the price of a indie game or a AA game just for a booty skin. But even with those concerns, I will still play it for sure. I have been wanting a Dune universe game to dive into, and this looks like Funcom is the one who the Herbert estate has trusted enough to bring us this experience. They also trusted Denis Villeneuve for the films, and damn, he did a good job. So Funcom, if you see this, thank you. And for the love of Shai Hulud, send me a beta code. I applied when the beta was first announced. Just let me in. Anyways, thanks for sticking around until the end. Until next time.
No, Muad'Dib. No, Lisan al-Gaib. No, Kwisatz Haderach. All of my visions lead to horror. Except for this one.